So she exists on the more extreme spectrum of adult entertainment. Now, you take that to the next level and you decide to get pregnant, of which I probably should have mentioned this as like the first thing, but I genuinely do feel sorry for the guy who's not.
The royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who might find it hard to breathe if you've got that asthma. He's also a man who does include running his mouth in his cardio routine. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. And I am here to talk about some of the good, some of the bad, but definitely the extremes. Because I've got some circumstances here that just feel like they are just extremely wild or tell a tale that is extremely misleading in some way, shape, or form. So, if not properly understood, could actually have some negative impacts on society. Because I feel like sometimes people just hear some of the stuff that's being said or go through some things, and then suddenly they think that because of this supposedly extreme situation, this is how reality is supposed to be, or this is something that is perfectly normal, yet it's not really the case. And granted, I know me discussing Bonnie Blue on this episode isn't something that is supposed to be a normal occurrence. This is an example of an extreme case, but her and whatever antics that she may have gotten herself into the news for doing is definitely something that should be discussed for one reason or the other. But the other part that comes in the main topic, now that's something that I do feel could be extremely misleading. What am I talking about when I say all of that? I do intend on explaining in the course of this episode, to which I hope you listen all the way to the end, and I hope you do like what it is that you're listening to. But in case you don't like it, or you do like it, or you have a different form of feedback, or you would like to suggest a potential topic and or guest for the podcast, then the DMs are always open. The social media links are in the description. I don't know whether I should say below, above, to the side. I don't know. Wherever it is, they are on your platform. And I would be more than happy to listen to your feedback and to also read what it is that you send me and handle it accordingly. Now, should you feel a little bit lazy and you don't want to look through the description and find the social media links, which are usually at the bottom, then you can always listen to the end of the episode, because I always mention the social media there. And I hope you are enjoying what it is that you're listening to and you do actually listen all the way till the end. Now, with that said, I do need to get into our topics of today. Now, I want to kick things off by talking about Bonnie Blue for a bit. Now, before I even get to Bonnie Blue, let me just preface this by saying that I did not have the idea of talking about Bonnie Blue up until a couple of hours before I did this recording. And this is for a particularly specific reason, okay? I had actually planned to talk about Arsenal and, the whole Arsenal versus PSG match, and the fact that I feel like there were too many people that were just Arsenal groupies just because they won the league and shit. But that ended up being eclipsed by the news that I got that apparently Bonnie Blue is pregnant. And no, that's not really the main part of the news. That's one piece of it. The other piece is, not only is she pregnant, but she is intending on turning her baby shower into a golden shower. Now, for those of y'all that have lived on the much cleaner, nicer side of the internet, you probably don't know what a golden shower is, so I will explain to you. A golden shower is the other thing that R. Kelly was known for besides him having a liking to kids. And to be a little bit more specific, it is the act of peeing on somebody. So now, apparently, this lady, for her baby shower, wants a bunch of people to come to a public spot that she is intending on choosing in London this month of June, for those of y'all that might be listening sometime later, to go ahead and pee on her as part of her celebration, aka baby shower. And that was her main idea on how she wanted to celebrate with a baby shower. Now, I have quite a number of thoughts on this, I'll be very honest, but before I can do that, I want to first give the opportunity for the clip where she said all of this to be put out there so that I can get into my thoughts on it. Now, some of these thoughts were my own original ones, others seem to have come from other people. But before I can get into any of that, let me let the clip play. So without further ado...
Did I hear right that you have a stunt planned for June?
Yes, I have a baby shower on Saturday. Next Saturday. And I'm inviting the public to turn my baby shower into a golden shower.
Why?
It's just fun. It's a twist on the baby shower. I'll be having sex with the people as well as. And it's going to be like a mixture of wholesome baby shower games, like the traditional trying different baby food, along with other fluids added in there.
Now I'm uncomfortable. This is your baby. This is your child.
Yeah. Again, my body, this is what I'm choosing.
Do you not see that in any way as a denigration of your baby?
No, like, it is difficult because I don't want to sexualize the baby.
Okay, so let's get this straight. This woman, by the name of Bonnie Blue, has decided that not only is she having a baby. Mind you, for those of you all that don't know who or what Bonnie Blue is very well known in the more secular and more adult entertainment side of the world as the woman that has slept with hundreds of guys within a 24-hour period, and she has attempted to break certain records like that, and she seems to be particularly proud of it, okay? Now, not only did this woman get pregnant, which, I'm not saying that she shouldn't be able to, but, like she said, her body, her choice. But she decided that for her baby shower, she is going to have people pee on her. And she also added that she is going to allow people to, get early access to the birth canal, which her baby is supposed to get access to and come out of. Like, do you realize just how wild this shit is? Because I do. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I have a theory. And I will explain why in a bit after I say a couple of the other thoughts. But I have a theory that this isn't really something that she's trying to do, and she might actually be playing us all with a particular reason in mind. But before I can explain that, let me just get into some of the stuff that people are saying, because I remember, like, when I was looking through the comments, a lot of people were busy talking about how they need to get child protective services to take away the kid. Some people were even asking if child protective services can basically take the kid even before it's born or as soon as the kid is born. And it was all people that were just talking about how this babe genuinely seems like she is crazy. Other people were even referring to her as a demon, and they were like, oh, this woman is clearly demented or is been attacked by some form of like spiritual entity. Like, people were saying all sorts of shit. And honestly, while I don't think that most of what they were saying is particularly wrong, I can totally understand why they would say such a thing, because, well, suffice it to say, this is actually quite crazy. But now, at some point after I saw this clip and I listened and I played the clip a couple more times, something else kind of clicked in my mind. What if Bonnie Blue is doing all of this, or should I say saying all of this, for the sake of rage bait? What if she is enjoying the pleasures that can come with rage bait? Because most people might think that rage baiting is something that only commentators do on the internet, or people that are busy just trying to look for clout basically do on the internet. But the truth of it is, rage baiting is something that's done by so many different people on so many different levels, and a lot of people use it as a tool because hate as an emotion actually does serve as a very interesting and very potent fuel. Let me explain this for a little bit. When you think of the likes of Lady Gaga, when you think of the likes of Doja Cat, one thing that people didn't realize that they would do up until they kind of did it for a while and then it kind of lost its vibe was this practice of using shock and awe to generate clout and use that clout to generate value. And interestingly enough, another person that also used this to a pretty good level, even though it did end up hurting them further down the road, was Lil Nas X, whereby you would find that these guys would, right at the point where their stardom might be beginning to fade, start doing things that are very obscene and wild that would basically generate a very massive reaction from people. Like the one where someone looks at it and they find it so wild that they have to tell people about it. Kind of like the same way I'm talking about this story on my podcast. I am basically amplifying it to a bunch of other people. And this is something that different celebrities have used to a certain degree, and it has garnered different levels of impact, of response, and has also garnered them quite a bit of value after the fact. Because when you look at it, people paid a lot of attention to Lady Gaga because Lady Gaga was just doing wild shit. If you look at Doja Cat, same exact thing. Her music wasn't bad, but she never fell out of irrelevancy for a good chunk of time because people were just talking about how she was basically doing wild shit on her music videos, or even in person, or even some of the wild shit that she would say online. So they were basically using shock and awe to rage bait people so that they could come and just talk about different stuff. I feel like Bonnie Blue's doing the same exact thing because she is the epitome of a wild content creator as far as adult entertainment is concerned, because the whole sleeping with like 500 guys, 800 guys, she's done the whole thing that has basically made her a household name in the adult content creation industry, not necessarily because she's a great performer or she's super beautiful, but because she has just done obscene acts. So she exists on the more extreme spectrum of adult entertainment. Now, you take that to the next level and you decide to get pregnant, of which I probably should have mentioned this as like the first thing, but I genuinely do feel sorry for the guy whose nut was selected so that it could produce this kid, if a kid actually does exist. And I honestly do think that maybe there might not be a kid in all of this. But anyways, that's sort of besides the point. She decides to get pregnant, then says that she is going to be in a public spot ready for people to basically do a golden shower on her and also bang her within that particularly public spot. Like, I feel like that's just her basically rage baiting people, because if anything, it means that more and more people will be looking up to search who Bonnie Blue is, and the people who know of Bonnie Blue will probably want to find out if what she's actually talking about actually does come to pass. Whether it does or it doesn't come to pass, people will be looking for her, and some of that will translate to people that might actually end up subscribing to her OnlyFans. So for the people that didn't know about her, now they do. For those that knew a little bit about her, now they probably know a little bit more. And for those that have always known about her, it might be the extra push that they might get, if not, that they might have, to amplify the story to other people, to which some of them might end up actually paying for her OnlyFans. And that, if anything, might actually be the end goal. Granted, I could be wrong, but the reason I thought about this is because when I looked at how people reacted to the Arsenal versus PSG game, which happened this previous weekend of the time that this episode goes live, it kind of did show me just how many people actually like to react in a moment of hate, because there were a ton of people that were hate watching the Arsenal PSG game. So for the most part, it's not like the majority of the people that watch the Arsenal PSG game were either Arsenal supporters or PSG supporters. It was just supporters of other teams that were hate watching because they didn't want either Arsenal or PSG to take it, of which for the most part it was actually Arsenal. So if anything, I do think that this is probably rage bait for the most part. And with that said, considering that I have eaten into quite a bit of time, I am going to leave it at that and move it on to our main topic of this episode. Now, I have had a lot of discussions on this podcast about going on the date and also dating and money in general, but I don't always have the discussion of whether someone should date when they don't have money, or if they can date if they don't have money. Because for the most part, I haven't really felt like that's a discussion that's really had to be had. Just mainly because, a lot of people believe that if you don't have money, you really shouldn't be dating. Now, while I don't hold that particular sentiment, I do believe that you probably should have some money by the time you are putting yourself into the dating market, or even trying to have some sort of a relationship out here. Just simply because if you're a guy and you're doing that, then you definitely should be in a more resourceful position. And if you're a babe and you are trying to go into the dating market with no money, then there's a pretty good chance that you're either going to be treated like shit, or you're going to be complaining, yet you yourself can't even hold your own. But, that's kind of besides the point. I normally speak for guys for the most part, just because the whole idea of dating and money tends to affect guys most of the time. But I stumbled across a particularly interesting TikTok video recently where a babe was saying that if you don't have money, then you shouldn't be dating at all. And her next preface that she said after that is, you need money for you to be in a relationship, which kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Not because I have anything against this babe, but just mostly because I feel like that rhetoric has basically been used to a certain extreme, which has kind of hurt dating for a lot of young people. So whenever I hear it, I just know that someone's about to spew a bunch of BS and is going to make it seem as though, especially if you're a guy, you have no business dating, not unless if you're doing super, super well for yourself. But what I found in that video wasn't exactly that. It was actually something that was a little bit more towards the other side of the spectrum, but it still did make me wonder if probably there might be an issue to this. Not necessarily the whole rhetoric, but the fact that you actually do need to have money so that you can date. Now, I am going to let a bit of the clip play, not all of it, and I'll explain why in a bit so that I can get into my thoughts on it, and also point out that while a lot of dating nowadays does seem to need more and more money, I don't think that should really be the case. But instead of talking too much about it, let me just let some of the clip play. So without further ado...
What did Justin Bieber say? As long as you love me, we could be starving, we could be homeless, we could be broke. Usiwahi kwenye motela. Guys, you need money to be in a relationship. A relationship requires money to flourish. It does. It does. So how are you going to go on dates? How are you going to go on dates? How are you going to gift each other if you don't have the finances? And I'm saying this because I have experienced a relationship with little finances. But before tuingie kwa story, ukiona hizo kabati hapo nyuma,
you know what time it is?
So
okay, so I cut it off at some point, particularly early on, because the entire clip is about 10 minutes, if not actually over 10 minutes, just mainly because she was gonna go into a story which I can probably just summarize as she decided to date a guy. The guy would want to treat out, or would say that he wants to treat out, or would try to take her to some place, and then he'd be like, hey, look, I was supposed to be doing some shit that would have gotten me cash, but something happened, I haven't got the money, would you mind paying for this? I'll refund you. And then also during Valentine's, he made it seem as though they were supposed to go for dinner and everything. He asked her to dress up, and he met up with her, and all they did was take a walk. And when he ended up buying her flowers, he ended up asking for money so that he could take a matatu back home because he didn't have any money, and he had used that money to buy flowers. So technically she kind of bought the flowers for herself, just sort of indirectly. So it was an entire story that she gave, and she used it to justify that if you don't have money, you have no business dating. And you know, all of that seems particularly fine. It's just, I would probably argue that a guy that is absolutely having no money, not dating, is kind of par for the course. Like, I feel like a guy that doesn't have anything, really, like has zero money, is barely, able to make ends meet, probably wouldn't even be thinking of dating at that point in time because they need to focus on survival. But, then again, that's just me. Also, I forgot to mention the name of the creator that did this video. Her name is Alwatch, or at Adut Alwatch on TikTok. And she normally tends to do stories of like stuff that happened either in her life or from someone else. I don't know. Either way, my issue was the story that she gave, which I kind of explained quickly, and also the fact that she was saying that if you don't have money, you don't have any business dating. And truth of it is, if I didn't listen to the entire clip, I'd be out here busy saying that she's busy, chatting a bunch of shit, and, even though you don't have a lot of money, you should still be able to date. To which all of that is true. It's just the story that she gave made it seem as though this guy was so broke that he did not have any money to basically do more than just survive, and that was just barely scraping by. So in that case, I would probably side with her. Except that there's more to this, and the whole idea of, oh, you shouldn't be dating if you don't have any money, I do think is probably overblown for a lot of people today, because the idea of don't date up until you have money has held so many people back, has kept so many guys back from actually trying their luck, all because they don't think that they should be doing it, simply because they were told that if you're broke, you shouldn't really be dating, which isn't really the case in all of the situation. There's times when people are doing particularly well for themselves, but they still look at themselves as broke and as such decide to not date. Like, this is actually something that does affect quite a lot of guys. But now, in this babe's case, I do find it particularly odd, the story that she used, not because she mentioned a guy who doesn't have money, but the circumstances in which she was mentioning all of this don't necessarily mean that if you don't have money as a guy, you shouldn't be dating. Let me explain. Now, if you do actually listen to the entire clip, of which, by the way, considering that I didn't play the full thing, I will have it linked in the description of this episode so that you can listen to the entire thing. So, as I was saying, if you do actually listen to the entire clip, you find out that this guy, while he didn't have money, was never honest about the true situation that he had in his life. He was never honest about the fact that he didn't have money. He would just not have money and then go and expect them to do some things and be like, hey, look, there was this thing that was supposed to have happened for me to get some money, but I didn't get some. You mind spotting me? I'll see how to figure it out later, or I'll pay you back. Like that I don't think is a money problem per se. I feel like that's more of an honesty problem, in that if he told the babe that he didn't have money to do whatever it was that he was doing, they could have just found an alternative to it. Because, like, if you're interested enough in someone, usually, and I'm not saying all the time, but usually, oftentimes, you find that the person that is really, really into you is willing to make some sort of compromise so that they can spend time together with you, not because, like, they really don't care about it, but because they care a lot more about spending time with you than what it is that you guys are going to do. And I know this for a fact because I have actually been with a babe who at some point actually straight up told me, yo, even though we're just meeting up and taking a walk, provided I get to spend time with you, that is what is most important to me. So in my opinion, I feel like her issue was more of an honesty issue, not necessarily a money issue. But honesty aside, looking at the issues with money, do I think that you need money to be in a relationship or to date? My answer for the past 5, if not even all 6 of the years I've been doing this podcast, is probably going to be the same one, which is yes, you do need money for you to be dating. And the justification I've always given is dating is an investment, relationships are an investment, and you can't invest if you don't have the capital to invest. Now, this is something that I have spoken about a lot, okay? And it's something that I've been very straightforward and very firm on. But at the same time, over time and, with a little bit of experience in there, I can probably say that you don't need that much money whenever it comes to dating. The problem is we believe that you need a lot more money than you actually do to actually date or to actually be in a relationship with someone. And the reason I say this isn't because I'm just trying to make it seem as though, you can date at whatever budget. It's because there's people that have managed to date to the point where they've even had kids and build a lot more of themselves, and they started off from literally close to nothing. And you find that even though they didn't build themselves into this powerhouse of a couple, there are still couples among people that are, suffering with poverty. Is it that these guys got money so that they could get into relationships and then it ran out? No. So if anything, it is the proof that we need to say that you do not need a lot of money or even like too much money to actually go out and date. I do think that there are a lot of people, more so women, that do think of dating in this whole fairy tale, perfect setup type way. But the truth of it is, dating and being in a relationship is more about getting to know someone and getting close to them and actually spending time with them, as opposed to you actually getting your dream date. Just saying. But, then again, for the most part, if I say such a thing to women, they usually tend to think that I'm just speaking from a point of lacking or scarcity, yet I need to have an abundance mindset. And for that, I will say that I don't think that you need that much money, because if anything, money is usually meant to enhance the experience, not necessarily make it. And the reason I say this is because over the years, there are people that have actually done enough studies to show that the average cost of the date has actually been going up, and it has moved up from one level to another. But when I look out here, it's not like the relationship quality or, the number of relationships out here has been increasing one after the other in relation to those costs. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like I have studies, stating why everyone has been dating and, what has made great partners or anything. But at least I can say that when it comes down to it, we have been spending more money on dates, but it hasn't particularly translated to us having better experiences or us getting into better relationships. So I do think that that's a given. Also, I do believe that if the both of you are genuinely interested in each other, then the problem isn't really someone spending money on you on the date or for the date. It is more about you guys actually spending quality time together, and you can get that shit done with a good amount of creativity to actually substantiate for the money. Let me give you a particularly good reasoning for that, which actually goes back to something that some guys usually talk about whenever it comes to their birthday, because women for a long time have come out and they've said, we don't know how to gift men because men usually don't say what it is that they want, blah, blah, blah. And the truth of it is, yes, a lot of guys don't usually talk about what they'd want for their birthday just because they don't expect any gifts for the most part. But the truth of it is, there's a lot of things that us guys would be perfectly comfortable with, whether you're making a lot of money as a babe or no money as a babe. Like, for example, cooking the favorite meal. You spending time with him, giving him a massage. Like, there's things like those that can work very, very well. And I would argue if you flip the genders, you could do roughly about the same thing. At the end of the day, it'll be the both of you spending time together doing something intimate that brings you closer together and actually makes the entire experience great. So you don't necessarily have to throw a fuck ton of money on taking someone on an expensive date and dressing all fancy or spending so much money on some shit, because like I've seen a video where a guy was being asked what he would do with a babe if he is to take her out on a date with 5K, and the guy is like, nah, 5K is too little. Nah, like that would feel like disrespect to you. I would have to use like 10 or 15K. And while I don't say that it's an entirely bad mentality to have, I do think that there's a lot of guys that think that way, and there's a lot of those guys that don't have that kind of money, so they're like, I can't take a babe out on a date. Yet the truth of it is, I don't think that should be the biggest hindrance. But then again, I could be wrong about that. But what I am trying to say, and what I am trying to conclude by saying is, I don't think that you having little money should be the biggest hindrance for you when it comes to attracting a partner. I do think that it can hold you back as far as confidence is concerned, but I don't think that money should be the biggest hindrance whenever it comes to the two of you getting into a relationship. If you guys really want to be together, I do think that you guys can make it work within reason and within boundaries. Although, then again, considering that there's a babe that's going to heavily disagree with me on this, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On IG, it is the Breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the Breaktime Podcast. On X, it is at Bagaki the D. And on Bluesky, it is at the breaktimepod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.